On today's show, we have our guest, David Goa, and we're going to be talking about the Orthodox word Prelest. What does it mean, and how do we understand it? In my opinion, it sounds very similar to the psychological concept of projection. But, David Goa?
Well, that's interesting that you make that connection to projection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, projection at its worst is a condition where somebody has suffered deeply, perhaps traumatically,
Mm-hmm.
and that's become a neurosis, a fixation. So they then kind of see the world through the prism of that suffering, that projection,
Mm-hmm.
through that trauma. So if they hear a large bang, they react to it because their trauma was associated with an explosion or something of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
Prelest is a term that has been used a bit in Orthodox world to speak about what is usually thought of as a kind of spiritual delusion, thinking that you've been given some special revelations,
Mm-hmm.
that your perspective on things is the perspective and is pure, but it also has a compulsive character to it, being fixated on a particular set of beliefs or particular kind of formulations or a particular set of ritual acts, and you become obsessive compulsive about them.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to do them, or you have to have people sign on with a certain kind of formulation. So it's a disease. It's a disease of the mind, and it needs to be healed. Like all projections need to be healed. So it's referring to the way in which sometimes, tragically, people become wrapped up in a particular kind of spiritual, what they think is a spiritual and righteous form or practice. And then they seek to see that practice needs to be undertaken by everybody else for them to accept them as perhaps a fellow brother or sister in the faith. It's something that has, I think, primarily shown itself in monasteries, because monasteries are a spiritual hospital. That's where the hard cases go. So people can be subject to that, and some of the ways it manifests itself sometimes it even manifests itself in people that have, religious status.
Mm-hmm.
They're seen as an elder or a very pious person in some fashion, and they then can impose certain kinds of practices which they see as essential and repetitive, and it can also, of course, become abusive when it is undertaken by somebody who has their own inner suffering that hasn't been healed, and they then project that onto the world. So Prelest is an illusion, thinking that somehow or other your sense of the tradition is the tradition, instead of understanding that we've been bequeathed that which is handed on by the fathers and mothers of the church, by the biblical tradition. And it's a large landscape of meaning, and that our spiritual life is always one of growing, always one of becoming new in and through our communion with others.
So it's perfectly okay for someone to be different in the faith. I mean, in the Orthodox faith, we have very different saints. I mean, some saints are literally royalty. Other saints are hermits and holy fools. Others live in monasteries. Other people are married. If you look at the lives of the saints, they're very, very different.
Well, it's the whole human family.
Yeah.
The whole human family. is where the struggle takes place and where people's sufferings are manifest and where they experience healing and where they grow into holiness. So I love the idea of the great communion of saints and the way in which you express it, this enormous variety. Obviously, there are many people that we hold dear and remember in the church calendars as saints who are neurodiverse, who have had very particular kinds of struggles. And they have opened to God's grace, and they've lived lives, not selfish lives, not lives bound by their particular challenges, but lives that have been full of grace and mercy and compassion towards others. So you make a very fine point. The issue isn't the diversity matter that you see in the lives of the saints should remind us that every human being we meet, no matter what they believe, no matter how they behave, is the image of God, and that the Holy Spirit is wooing them to become whole, to be healed, and to become the likeness of God in the world as well.
Here's perhaps is a good question. What questions can a person ask to themselves first if they are suffering from prelest, or if they are in a state of prelest, or what to look out for people who might have prelest in the church? I mean, we're not called to judge other people, but what are things to look out for in ourselves and in others if they're suffering from prelest?
Well, I really have no idea. My sense is that if you see somebody who's obsessive compulsive around particular kinds of behaviors which have a particular spiritual meaning, that may lead you to wonder if they need help in that area. And then one would only hope that they would find someone who can help them and help them overcome that, because it's simply a spiritual form of addiction, like alcohol or drugs, where the body and the brain and your relationships all get reorganized around a need. And this is an expression of a kind of need, but there often goes along with the prelest condition a sense of high righteousness, that this is the actions.
I am better
necessary.
than you because I light more candles than you do.
Of course, that sort of thing. And that, of course, is a deep and tragic manifestation of pride. And pride, of course, is the root of all human disintegration. And it's what needs to be healed. So it's not up to us to diagnose these things. It's up to us to pay attention. And if there's an opportunity to speak a word that can be a healing word, then that's wonderful. But sometimes this kind of condition has laid a deep hold of a person. Sometimes it's really the doorway to psychosis. And sometimes people who suffer from obsessive compulsive behavior of any kind need really good psychiatric care, need some help at the deep levels of their even of their physical life, even of their chemistry.